was a messenger boy, because there were only about 45 or 50 telephones out here, and people that from the mainland would call for one of their relatives that might be at a motel or might have a home out here with no telephone. And I got big money on that, $50 cents a trip. And so anyway, and Aunt Oprah would call me at home. I'd get on my bicycle and ride out and give them a message, and then they would have to go to the telephone office to get the call and connect the call. Anyhow.
Do you have any idea when an automated switch was built? I mean, it's all in the same place as it used to be, pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah, because it was in the house that JG's in right now.
Right.
And the telephone system is
It's
down
just
there.
the next property down.
I don't know.
I have no idea.
I know that Leonard Brown worked in there, and I think also Henry Studeman, I believe, was there at one time. Which reminds me of another story. Henry had just gotten in from out of the service and was on his way home, and he made a call to his home, and of course I had to go give his wife Nellie, wasn't it Nellie? No, Nellie. Yeah. I had to go give her a message, and she was so excited, and I was on my bicycle, and she was trying to go through the sand and everything to get to the telephone office, and I said, well, you can take my bicycle, man. She took it, left me just running, just running through the dirt. That's the last time I offered my bicycle to anybody.
You've had sand and transportation things
going on
a long time.
But,
I don't want to go ahead.
One of the stories I remember about the telephone office was, and you can help me with this, Aunt Opal, of course, always had an ear to the ground, trying to figure out what was going on in the island. And she heard a guy that came in. There was a booth kind of in the entryway there at the telephone office, and she heard this guy come in and make a call, and she heard him speaking in a foreign language, and she got very suspicious of what was going on, because there had been some instances of German spies being picked up in North Beach and first place. Anyhow, she overheard this conversation, and so she reported it to, I guess, the Coast Guard or somebody, and they followed up on it. Sure enough, this guy was passing on a classified information, and she expected to be rewarded handsomely, but instead she got chewed out for listening to somebody else's telephone call. And that was the official.
Isn't there a story about her at the ferry?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. The ferry she was on the ferry with Billy McNamara, and Billy had Tommy, the baby, and they were right up on the front of the ferry on the bow. And at that time they didn't have that riser like they do now. They had cables across either end of the ferry, and as they were approaching the dock, Billy's car went off the front of the ferry and went down, and then the guy who was running the ferry very easily slipped out from underneath the car instead of going over the top of it, and let it down as easy as he could. And Aunt Opal got out of the car. She looked over at Billy because she couldn't get the door open from the water pressure. And she looked over at Billy, and Billy was already going out the window with her baby in her arms. And Billy swam over to a skiff and climbed in there with the baby, and Aunt Opal hung on to the radio antenna until, or aerial or whatever they were called, until a sailor who was on the ferry leaned over and picked her up by one arm and lifted her off she was so little, that he was able to do that, lift her up by one arm while she was hanging on to that radio antenna.
And they were driving a 1941 Mercury coupe.
Just
And,
bought it
And it
the
was,
day before.
yeah, and it was a slick-looking automobile. And it was during the war, and nobody could buy a new car, and so they reconditioned that car. And you know, but it had sunk completely down in salt water. So by the time the war was over, the fenders were banging on that thing, but it was Tom McNamara's car. He worked in ran a fish house during the war, and anyway, by the time the war was over, they badly needed a new car.
We're closing in on a little bit past our time here, past an hour, and I don't want us to end without telling us a little bit about the school system over here, particularly a date or two relative to when there was no high school on this island. I know we'd want to get that straight for the record, so what do you all remember
Okay.
about school days?
Well, first of all, I started school when I was 5 years old, and graduated from high school in Aransas Pass when I was 16. So I was born in 31. You figure up the dates then. I quit school here at Port Aransas because my cousin Joyce Lister told me that she would wear lipstick if I would come over to Aransas Pass and go to high school over there. So I spent my last 2 years in Aransas Pass, graduated in 1948, and went off to college at 16. And so that was, during 1948, there was no high school out here. They closed it down. And everybody had to go to high school in Aransas Pass, and we had an old bus that took us from the, well, we picked the bus up down at the,
It was a commercial bus. It was owned by the Causeway, the people that ran the
yeah,
Causeway.
but we rode it, and I don't remember what we paid or
I
anything
think like
like that,
15 cents a ride.
something. And we could catch it where the ticket office was. It didn't come to the school and pick us up. We had to walk all the way downtown to the ticket office where the bulkhead is going into Aransas Pass. There's a bridge over it now. But there was the ticket office where you bought the tickets to come out here to Port Aransas to ride the causeway.
Right there where
And
the
that-
seawall is.
Yeah, that always, when I got married to Bubba Ward, the Wards were real disturbed about people having to pay to come out here to our wedding because you were still paying $2 a trip to get on that ferry, 2 over and 2 off. And they wanted my parents to pay for it, and my parents were a little upset about that because they couldn't see any reason why people aren't willing to pay $2 to get out here after all they had to do it every time they left the island. For a while it was $1 and then it was $2. And so the school out here was a real good school. We had to take state board exams in order for our credits out here in high school to be accepted into college or into another high school. And we had a teacher, Ms. Owens, Mr. and Ms. Owens, and they would teach us, like I took 1 year from Ms. Owens, I took Algebra 1 and Algebra 2 and passed both tests in 1 year. And another year I took mathematics and advanced mathematics and passed both tests on that. Even passed a test in agriculture. And just whatever we came across that we thought we could pass the test on, we took it. So I went into high school in Aransas Pass with a whole lot of credits, and into college with extra credits. I didn't have to take any math after I got out of high school.
I started in high school in 1948, and there was still a high school going on in Port Aransas when I started in September. But that was the last year, 48, 49 was the last year that Port Aransas had a high school for a while. And the last person to graduate from that high school was a gal by the name of Donna Carpenter, who married one of the Belcher boys, Buddy Belcher. And anyway, then after I spent a year in high school in Aransas Pass, they closed down their effort to have a high school here, and they sent everybody to Aransas Pass, and until whenever it was that they reopened high school in John.
Was that simply because there weren't enough students here to warrant a high school curriculum?
Right.
That was about it. Yeah.
That was it.
There
were 6 of us in high school, 6 girls, not even a boy.
the last
and
year
that-
you went.
Yeah, the last year that I went to high school out here, there were 6 girls.
Now,
And that was included freshmen and sophomore and
can
some
you
juniors.
describe the brick schoolhouse? How many rooms, how many teachers, in what I guess we'd call elementary and middle school now? I mean, those grades.
well, it had 4 rooms. 2 of them had a sliding wall that could be raised up
Between two of them.
between 2 rooms. And then one of the rooms had a stage at the front of it so that we could put on little theater projects. And then the other 2 rooms were up front, and we came in through the entrance to the school, walked up the stairs, and went to whichever room we happened to be in. And then there were restrooms at the end of the hallway that led to the classrooms. And my mama didn't tell me about boys and girls not using the same restroom. So I did use whichever one happened to be handy until I got caught in there by a friend's brother, and he told me, little girls don't come in here, they go to the other one. So all the girls want to know, what does the boys' restroom look like?
And I was safe because she told me that, there's one for boys and one for girls. So when I started school, I didn't make that same mistake. But there were 4 rooms and there were 4 teachers, and and the 2 rooms on the east side did have this partition that would raise up, and then you'd have an auditorium. And in the high school room, there was a stage that had a curtain and everything, so that they could put on plays. And the first room was 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm.
Second room was 4th and 5th grade. 3rd room was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And then the other room with the stage in it was high school. And the teachers pretty much stayed. I think I do remember the Owenses helping each other out. Mr. Owens would come in and teach our history class when I was in the 4th and
He
5th
taught the
grade.
history, she taught
And
math.
She taught math. She'd go to the high school and teach math. And then there was Miss Edna Nelson, who was one of my school teachers. The preacher Parnell's wife was one of my school teachers. The other preacher, I can't remember his name now. Anyhow, they and I had I was in that room for 3 years, and I had maybe 6 different teachers until Miss Nelson got in there, and it was during the war, and we even had some Army wives that would come in and teach for us, and so we had kind of it was a good school, but still it was hard for a kid like me to learn very much. I was more interested in just looking out the window. And but when the Owenses got there, they pulled it all together, and there were 2 real good school years there. And then I went to the 6th, 7th, and 8th grade room, and one of Miss Nelson's sister-in-laws, what was her name? And that's funny. Anyway, could say the last name, y'all would know who I'm talking about. Anyway, she was my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade teacher. Or 6th and 7th grade teacher, and then there was Miss Williams, that was my 8th grade teacher, and then I went to Rains Pass High School.
Not Vera Fortson.
No, Vera Fortson.
Came later.
Came later.
She came
Now,
later.
another thing that you would probably have information about, can you describe the Catholic Church?
The old Catholic Church?
In those years that, you know,
Yes.
when's your first recollection of that? Was it always there on?
Well,
what
it
is that,
was always
Oaks or-
there
Always there for us, yeah.
for us. Now, I understand that there was another church that blew down during the 1919 hurricane. So the other church was built after
There
that.
was, to the west of where that old Catholic church stands, was a lot that had an old dilapidated building in it, remember? And that had suffered some damage and hurricane damage and everything, and that, I think, was a previous church.
Okay.
And then one of the bishops, Bishop Carriga, out of Carpus, was a man with some money, and his family personally put up the funds to rebuild the Catholic Church.
I thought it was
Yeah.
Lavina.
Well, Lavina was the head of Carriga, but I think it was the Carriga family that provided the money for that.
So in
Yeah.
any event, it was after the 1919 storm
Yes.
that
Yeah.
what we look at as the old Catholic Church was
Yeah.
built.
And probably sometime between 20 and 25 maybe. The church was already there when Mama hit the island, and that was in 29.
And so I got married in that church. I made my first communion in that church. I did everything in that church. Then I got married in the other old Catholic church that they tore down and made a parking lot out of when I married Jimmy Thomas. No, I got married that time at the community center because I had been divorced. No, because I had that already taken care of. It was because Jimmy had been divorced at one time. Now his wife that just preceded me was a cousin, and she died with cancer. And so Jimmy had been mowing my yard and taking care of the yard for quite some time. And he started coming over and sitting on the step and talking to me. And then finally we realized we both had the same birthday. 9 years apart, but I was 9 years older, but we were both born November the 19th. And so we ended up getting married on our birthday. He said that way we won't have so much to remember when we get old.
Well, going back to school a while ago, it was Ravel, June Ravel was my
Right.
teacher. Obviously, junior.
Now, was she a relation then to Elvin A. Roberts?
Yes, yes.
It was?
They were Ravels. Their maiden name was Ravel.
Okay.
And so Dad Ravel and
Oh, well, June would have been
June
Jack
was
Ravel's
Jack Ravel's
wife.
Right,
Okay.
that's correct.
Okay.
And,
Well, folks, we've got an hour and 15 minutes of this, which is marvelous, but we have to think about the person that's going to have to type all this up.
Somebody's going to have to do some editing here.
And I want to thank you. Mark, you want anything to close with? Anything to close with for posterity's sake, Marcy?
Well, I was thinking of another story, but then I forgot what it was. So,
Next time.
yeah, Alzheimer's is playing
Manny?
tricks with me today.
I'm not going to admit to anything. See?
Thank you all very much. Appreciate it.
Well, it was
Thank
fun.
you. Thank you. It was fun. Anyhow, time goes on.
Time goes on.
Sure does.
And someday there are going to be interviews